Welcome back, warrior. Okay, we are reading Jacob chapter 1 today in the Book of Mormon. And so we're back at Book of Mormon reading, and it's going to be great. As soon as I can get this to balance on here. Oh boy. There, put it over here. Oh, actually, you know what I have? I have this. This is going to be good. With my beanie, since I took it off. I think we can use it. It's so crazy. Here we go. This is good, right? You can see me? Okay, I can see me. You can see me? Okay, today we are in the car, in the van, and just wanted to first give you like a overwhelm versus urgency or excitement for teaching. Sometimes, well, all the time, Satan likes to tell us that we don't have enough time, or he's the one, instigating all of the rushing around, right? And making us feel really flustered and feel chaos in our lives. And the way that we handle his whispers is essential. And the only way to be able to handle his attacks like that for me is to start the day connecting with Christ. And I've had so many times where I'm on vacation, or I'm so busy, or I stayed up late, and then I don't do what I want to do in the morning before I start my day. And I can tell that it makes a difference in my life. The best way to start it for me is actually going to the temple. But when I don't do that, the second best way is to read my scriptures and do some exercise. So strengthen my spirit and strengthen my body. But when your schedule gets crazy, and you don't get a chance to do that right away, you start to feel, or you start to hear these whispers that are like, oh, you haven't done this. You haven't done this yet. You haven't done this yet. How can you do more things if you haven't done these things? Right? And so then you get into this like, I gotta do this, right? And then it starts feeling overwhelming because you're trying to stack stuff on top that you haven't gotten a chance to do the things that you wanted to do. And anyway, like if I don't give myself time, like if I don't fill my cup, I can't give to others. And I like to have that analogy when I like to think of that analogy or remind myself of that whenever I start to get that overwhelming feeling, or if I didn't do certain things, I try to think, okay, whew. There's like a really bright van right there, and the white van is just like reflecting this sunshine in my eyes. Anyway, so if I don't take that time to connect with Christ on my own, and I don't fill my well, or will fill my cup, or fill my pitcher, if you will, then I can't pour and give to others, and from the person that I want to be. Like, I can definitely give to others, it just won't be in a nice way. Right? And so in order for it to be nice, and for me to be kind, and for me to show up as my best self that I desire to show up as, I need to do those things that are essential for me in my life. And that's called self-care. And if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of other people. Right? And because of this betrayal trauma, we have learned that we can let go of a lot of those things very easily, and those habits that we've created because we are now in a different state, right? But something that I did continue to learn as I was going through therapy and counselors and things was that you got to keep up your self-care, and you might need to take it up a notch or 3 notches, because now we're in a different, it's almost like now we can see the adversary in our lives. Now we know his attacks on our family, and we need more strength to be able to withstand those attacks. And I didn't realize that that's what I would need, because I was still going, and my normal self-care was not supplying the sufficient amount of strength that I needed for the new added weight or the new added battles that I was fighting, right? And so I think it's important for us to remember that we need to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of those that we love. Okay. And it's so cute. I love that Redheaded Hostess also tries to remind us not to become overwhelmed, but replace that overwhelm with urgency and excitement for teaching, because we learn, we take time to learn the scriptures ourselves, but at the same time we are learning so that we can teach our children to come to Christ like we are, right? I guess they wouldn't come like we do, but they would, I want them to have that testimony of Jesus Christ also. So something that she mentioned is that she was teaching for 13 years, and she had to prepare every day to prepare a lesson to engage 120 students every day, and it was 2,210 lessons that she said that she had to prepare. So she knows what it feels like to feel like, I need to prepare, I need to study, I need to do my own. And something that she liked to do is that before she would sit down to plan the lesson, she first had to study the chapters so that she would fall in love with the story. And I love that, because if we don't fall in love with the story, if we don't fall in love with Jesus Christ, and if we don't love our relationship with Jesus Christ, that love is not going to transfer to anyone, right? If you love chocolate, you're going to go to the chocolate closet, and your kids are going to follow you because they know how much you love it, and they now know how good it tastes because you might have given them a little taste when you were in that closet. I'm only speaking for a friend there. And if they know how much you love it and how much you go back to reading, and how much they know that you love the scriptures and coming closer to Christ, then they're gonna know that is an important part of your life. But if you make it like this big thing where you resent them, or you're yelling at them because you need to read your scriptures, they're not going to want to read their scriptures. They're going to be like, oh, scripture reading leads me to be a mean person. I don't want to do that, right? I got to the point where my oldest was telling me, Mom, you need to go to the temple because you're not acting like a nice mom. And I was like, okay, yes, I do need to go to the temple. So give me that time. So you stay here, and I'm going to go to the temple. Right? Because this was when he couldn't come with me. So anyway, I love that. Okay. So we are on Jacob chapter 1, 1-4. And this is where Nephi is passing the plates to Jacob. Nephi dies. The Nephites return to riches and become prideful. Jacob teaches Nephites at a temple and how to gain unshakable faith. So we have Nephi and Jacob. And as Nephi neared the end of his life, he passed the plates into... Excuse me, this is like the worst, right? We have so much sun. It's just in my eyes, making me yawn. And we're in this car, so I have to kind of weird yell. And because the thing is so far away from me. And yeah, and I don't have... Wait, do I have my copy of the Book of Mormon? I do not. I don't know where I put it. Could be somewhere. Anyway, Jacob had a firm testimony of Jesus. Oh, and he passed. So Nephi passed the plates into very capable hands, which was his brother Jacob. And then Jacob had a firm testimony of Jesus Christ and a deep knowledge of Jesus's atonement. Okay, in Jacob 7. Oh, I don't know why we need to be worrying about that. Okay, so Jacob 1. Here we go. We're going to read. There's 19 verses, so we're going to cover all of Jacob 1. Or at least I'm going to hope so. We are meeting for breakfast at 8:30, so we need to make sure that I can make that. And guess what? It's that time of the month, and it is not a slow flow, if you know what I'm saying, okay? Here we go. For behold, so usually I read the summary, but since I don't have the copy of the Book of Mormon with me, actually, hold on. I do have the copy of the Book of Mormon. I just need to get to the right spot. Patient with me. Thanks for being patient with me. Here we go. Yay! Okay. I had to open the Gospel Library app on my iPad. Okay. And then we can go back to Redheaded Hostess. Also, the battery on here has a certain amount of life, so we'll see how far we make it. Okay. So, the book of Jacob, the brother of Nephi. The words of his preaching unto his brethren. He confounded a man who seeketh to overthrow the doctrine of Christ. A few words concerning the history of the people of Nephi. Jacob and Joseph seek to persuade men to believe in Christ and keep his commandments. Nephi dies. Wickedness prevails among the Nephites about 544 to 421 BC. Okay, so here we go. For behold, it came to pass that 55 years had passed away from the time that Lehi left Jerusalem. Wherefore Nephi gave me, Jacob, a commandment concerning the small plates upon which these things are engraven. And he gave me, Jacob, a commandment that I should write upon these plates a few things which I considered to be most precious, that I should not touch save it were lightly, concerning the history of this people, which are called the people of Nephi. For he said that the history of his people should be engraven upon his other plates, and that I should preserve these plates and hand them down unto my seed from generation to generation. And if there were preaching which was sacred, a revelation which was great, or prophesying that I should engraven the heads, or prophesying that I should engraven the heads of them upon these plates, and touch upon them as much as it were possible for Christ's sake, and for the sake of our people. So include the things that are of greatest importance, right? Okay, so it says, so the recap here, or I don't know what to call this, commentary. Yeah, because I'm commenting and she's commenting. Nephi now passes the plates. Don't worry, we're gonna make it. Nephi now passes the plates onto very capable hands of his brother Jacob. Can you imagine witnessing this moment? After being commanded by the Lord to make the plates, and then after diligently inscribing upon them for so long, it was now time to pass them on to another steward. Nephi knew that these plates had a very specific purpose, and he gave Jacob instructions concerning what was and what was not to be included on these small plates. They are not meant to hold a detailed history of the people, but are meant to hold sacred things. The history won't bring people to Christ like the prophecies and teachings can. Elder L. Tom Perry, in October 2005 General Conference, said, how often we read the record primarily as a history of a fallen people, failing to remember that it was compiled by inspired prophets for the purpose of helping us come unto Christ. Oh. Sorry, I don't know how to read right there. Okay, the major writers of the Book of Mormon, I think what he was trying to say is, like, don't fail. And the only reason why I'm saying that I think he wants to say is because I don't think I read it right, but I don't know how to read it better. So, he's just saying, like, don't forget that you're reading things from inspired prophets to help us come into Christ. It's not just a history of a fallen people. Okay. Then let me continue the quote. The major writers of the Book of Mormon did not intend it to be a history book at all. In fact, Jacob said that his brother Nephi commanded him that he should not touch, save it were lightly, concerning the history of this people. Yeah, so like he's only supposed to tell the history very lightly, right? That's what he said. And then continue the quote. Each time we read the book, we should probably ask ourselves, why did these writers choose these particular stories or events to include in the record? What value are they for us today? Ooh, end quote. I love it. I love it. Yes, that is what he was trying to say. Is how can we more fully appreciate the scriptures if we remember that they are more inspired words of prophets than record keeping. Because yeah, when I'm just like, hey, I'm just reading somebody's random journal, because I keep a journal of random things. I'm going to be honest. I'll brain dump in my journal, and then I'll just like put some good things that are spiritual. And then I might put like my grocery list, or like my to-do list, or like some random thing, but that it's not all spiritual. But like we can't think of these scriptures as how we write our journal, because this is different. I would think of it as you write in a journal, and then now you have to engrave certain things that are really special that you think will bring people to Christ. And so you select from that journal that has all that extra. Okay, I was going to say junk, but I guess it's not necessarily junk, but I use the word junk a lot. Anyways, so a lot of extra, and then just, it's kind of like sifting. They sifted out all of that extra stuff and are putting only the good stuff in the Book of Mormon. And so it would be like if we sifted stuff from our journal and put it in a special like book. I almost think like if you were going to write a book, you wouldn't put all that extra stuff. You would write a book that would make sense, and it would have a good flow, and all that. Anyway, okay. So verses 5-8. It's getting cold in here. For because of faith and great anxiety, it truly had been made manifest unto us concerning our people what things should happen unto them. And we also had many revelations and and the spirit of much prophecy. Wherefore we knew of Christ and his kingdom, which should come. Wherefore we labored diligently among our people, that we might persuade them to come unto Christ and partake of the goodness of God, that they might enter into his rest. Lest by any means he should swear in his wrath they should not enter in, as in the provocation of the days of temptation, while the children of Israel were in the wilderness. Wherefore we would to God that we could persuade all men not to rebel against God, to provoke him to anger, but that all men would believe in Christ, and view his death, and suffer his cross, and bear the shame of the world. Wherefore I, Jacob, take it upon me to fulfill the commandment of my brother Nephi. Okay. And it says, notice in verse 5 how much Jacob cared about the Nephites. Then notice how the Lord revealed to Jacob what would happen to the Nephites, and also about Christ's coming. Jacob was like a watchman on the tower who could see further out, and then he could lead the people because of what Jacob knew and saw. He labored diligently to persuade the Nephites to come unto Christ. I love that he said that he was a watchman on the tower. I think that is our job as mothers, to be watchwomen on the tower for our family. And I'm not trying to exclude our husbands from that responsibility, but I'm just trying to focus more on things that I can control. Okay. And if you're able to connect with Christ, if you're able to connect with having, that closeness with Christ, you're going to be able to see, like Jacob could see for his people. You're going to be able to see, and I'm going to be able to see things afar off, and how I can lead my family out of temptation, or lead them out of the traps that Satan has set for them. And but if I don't come unto Christ, and if I just wake up willy-nilly and I'm just like, flying by the seat of my pants, I can definitely fly by the seat of the Spirit, but it's only going to last for so long, because my well depends on how deep my well is, and depends on how deep my cup is, that I'll be able to give from that cup, right? From that space. And so, or from that place. So I love that he says that, because I often see myself as a woman on the watchtower for, watchtower mom, for my family, because I want to make sure that I am doing my best and showing up as my best self, so that I can protect them, and so that I can be there for them when they need me. Something else that I love is the word guardian. You know how like schools talk about, oh, who's your guardian? Instead of like, they use the word guardian because they don't want to offend certain children who may not have both parents. So instead of saying like parents, right, they say guardian. And I used to think like, oh, I'm, like I'd rather call myself a parent, right? But I actually have found myself loving the word guardian, and it helps to identify my role to my children, and helps me to remember who I am for them. I'm not just a friend. I'm not just a parent. And I only say that lightly, because I know that comes with a huge responsibility, but I'm their guardian in more than one way. And I think that the title parent, I mean, I don't know where that word came from. I don't know the etymology or anything like that, but I love the word guardian. And when I think guardian, I think like guards, are there to protect, and guardians can provide, guardians can protect spiritually, can protect physically, can, a guardian can also be like a mentor, right? And like all these things like come to mind and a guardian has to show up as like their best self, right? They have to be strong in order to guard. And so it just kind of reminds me of like my role a little bit better. Anyway, let's keep going. So in verse 7, Jacob notes the story of the children of Israel in the wilderness who rebelled against God. The phrase provocation in the days of temptation, while the children of Israel were in the wilderness, refers to the times when the children of Israel provoked the Lord after they had been led out of Egypt. Remember the golden calf? Remember the murmuring in the wilderness? Remember the fiery serpents? Triple right? Even with the miracles that delivered them out of Egypt, the crossing of the Red Sea, and the manna given to them daily, they still rebelled. Jacob knows this story because he knows the scriptures. He knows what a group of people are capable of choosing, even though they have witnessed great things. This scripture story is giving him eyes to see, so he can labor to prevent it among his own people. And I love that because like it kind of also reminds me of like, go to those stories that help bring a remembrance to your children's lives. Like go to those stories that impacted your family and remind your kids where you stood during those times. I remind my kids often about the struggle that we have with how Satan attacks our family with pornography. And so they know that we're going to talk about that and how we can stay strong against it if we can connect with Christ. And so, and a reminder of like, hey, our family would not be where it is today without Jesus Christ. Like our family would probably be divorced. We would be, having these problems. And then sometimes they joke about things like, well, yeah, but then you could get me a cell phone earlier for our kids, trying to get all the things that they want. Because, when you're part of the divorced family and you're trying to show up for your kids, sometimes you gotta, speak in their love language. And my kids' love language is stuff and electronics And so I can only imagine all the things that other parents have to go through if they were to be divorced. So anyway, so yeah, make sure that you are reminding your kids of those stories, and like also the stories that happened in your past that maybe were hard for you to go through, but that you learned a lesson, because the things that we have been through in our lives can serve us as lessons. They're not life sentences. They are lessons that are given to, or we can choose to use them as a lesson in our lives, or we can be victims of those experiences. And I want to choose that I'm going to learn from them and grow from them. And if we can help our kids see that as well, then those lessons in their lives and those experiences won't be so harsh. Okay, and then it says, or she says, in verse 8, Jacob hopes to teach all men to not only believe in Christ, but to persuade them to bear his cross and suffer for his name. Elder Holland quoted this scripture when he told this story. A sister missionary recently wrote to me, my companion and I saw a man sitting on a bench in the town square eating his lunch. As we drew near, he looked up and saw our missionary name tags. With a terrible look in his eye, he jumped up and raised his hand to hit me. I ducked just in time, only to have him spit his food all over me and start swearing the most horrible things at us. We walked away saying nothing. I tried to wipe the food off my face, only to feel a clump of mashed potato hit me in the back of the head. Sometimes it is hard being a missionary, because right then I wanted to go back, grab that little man and say, excuse me, but I didn't. To this devoted missionary, I say, dear child, you have, in your own humble way, stepped into a circle of very distinguished women and men who have, as the Book of Mormon prophet Jacob said, viewed Christ's death and suffered his cross and borne the shame of the world. End quote. I remember when I heard that talk in General Conference, and I was so hurt and appalled for that missionary. I remember the feeling that I had, like, how dare this person treat another human being and a missionary like that? Oh, and I love how Elder Holland brought it back to the life lesson that we can learn from those things that happen to us, or we can be a victim of them. And like, could you just like imagine this sister missionary like being your child? Ooh, like they are so lucky that their mom or dad was not there. You know what I'm saying? Holy smokes. Also, like, us humans, come on, people, get it together. Don't treat people like that. Like, what's the matter with them, right? And that means that, like, that's true. Like, something was wrong with them, and something was triggering to them. And so I love that this sister missionary was able to show a ton of self-control and restraint, because she was able to see that person for as a child of God, and didn't go back and take it out on him. Like, oh man, you know, if somebody were to do that to my children, do not tell me, because I'm gonna go look for where you live, and we're gonna have some words and some hands and some kicking. Okay, with just like mama bears, do not, you know what I mean? Like, don't go there with my kid. And so you just think, like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? How do humans get to the point where they treat people like that they don't even know? Like, that doesn't even, I don't even know how to process that, right? So imagine this sister missionary. It happened to her, and she's just an angel. Like, awesome. Good job. And this was a General Conference talk, April 2014. So I'm surprised I can remember that story so good. I mean, it's funny because I have actually listened to general conferences like so many times looking for that story, but I couldn't find where it was. And it's right there. So I'm so glad the redheaded hostess chose that story to put in there. Okay, because now I know where it's at. Okay, verse 9 to 12. Now Nephi began to be old, because why does it say? Oh, and I don't know. I'm gonna keep reading. Let's just keep reading. There's some notes. The way that redheaded hostess does things, so that you know why I'm like wondering. They have like, she has like notes and things in the verses, and so I never know like how to read those, because I'm like, wait, do I interject that in there now, or do I wait till later? I don't know. So that's why I was wondering what I was gonna say. Okay, so now Nephi began to be old, and he saw that he must soon die. Wherefore he anointed a man to be a king and a ruler over his people, now according to the reigns of the kings. Okay, so there's going to be a new king. That's what it is. The people having loved Nephi exceedingly, he having been a great protector for them, or guardian, having wielded the sword of Laban, in their defense, and having labored in all his days for their welfare. Wherefore the people were desirous to retain in remembrance his name, and whoso should reign in his stead were called by the people second Nephi, and third Nephi, and so forth, according to the reigns of the kings. And thus they were called by the people, let them be of whatever name they would. And it came to pass that Nephi died. Okay. That's cute. I love that they loved Nephi so much that they were like, we're just going to call everyone Nephi. It's like, okay. Maybe it was to remind them who they were representing, right? Or whose shoes they needed to fill. Okay, so it was decided that, so the commentary. It was decided that in order to remember Nephi, the kings would now be known as Nephi also. So no matter what their names were, when they became king, they would be second Nephi, third Nephi, and so on. Not to be confused with the fact that didn't we just finish second Nephi? I swear we just finished second Nephi. Hold on. I'm the worst. You gotta know that I'm the worst. Yeah, we just finished second Nephi. So that's only gonna be more confusing. Because now they're like on 5th Nephi and we're on like 7th Nephi. Who knows? I don't know. So then it says in verse 12, Nephi dies. As a family, this could be a great time to reflect on what Nephi has taught each of you through his words and his example. You could even have your children write a thank you letter to Nephi. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. You could also set out a poster and put a picture of Nephi in the center, and then fill the poster with favorite things Nephi taught, favorite scriptures, prophecies that influenced you, etc. You could see how full you could fill the poster. Also, I'm feeling like Nephi died in real life. That he died a long time ago. But I love that we can make it more real for our kids by doing those things. Okay, we're on verse 13. Okay, now the people which were not Lamanites were Nephites. Nevertheless, they were called Nephites, Jacobites, Josephites, Zoramites, Lamanites, Lemuelites, and Ishmaelites. But I, Jacob, shall not hereafter distinguish them by these names, but I shall call them Lamanites, that seek to destroy the people of Nephi, and those who are friendly to Nephi I shall call Nephites, or the people of Nephi according to the reigns of the kings. Okay, we're going to go to verse 16. And now it came to pass that the people of Nephi, under the reign of the second king, began to grow hard in their hearts, and indulge themselves somewhat in wicked practices, such as like unto David of old, desiring many wives and concubines, and also Solomon his son. Yea, and they also began to search much gold and silver, and began to be lifted up somewhat in pride. Okay, this could be very triggering. Okay, so, but let's see what they learned from this and how they handled it. Okay, here we learn how the Nephites and Lamanites identified themselves. They didn't just all call themselves Nephites and Lamanites, kind of how we look at it, but they were in smaller subgroups that identified who they descended from. We also learned the state of the Nephites. It had been 55 years since they left Jerusalem. And now, with Nephi gone, most of the Nephites never knew life beyond the promised land, and they began to grow hard in their hearts. Concerning verse 15, where Jacob notes that some Nephites were desiring concubines, the 2003 Book of Mormon Student Manual explains this as follows. Concubines in the Old Testament were considered to be secondary wives. That is, wives who did not have the same standing in the caste system, they then prevailing as did those wives who were not called concubines. Concubines had full protection as wives and did not violate the law of chastity when the marriages were approved by the Lord. During the time period of the Book of Mormon, however, concubines were not approved by the Lord. Okay, so this helps us learn to talk about hard things, right? And not to go into a whole lot because I don't have that much time. I love the fact that concubines were not approved for them. And so this is how we're going to be able to learn what how they dealt with that, and how and what the prophet of the Lord was going to say to them in their time with their culture and their laws at the time, right? And all I gotta say is I'm glad that we don't have that kind of life now. It would be really hard. And when I was reading the book, the Saints book, it was very triggering, very hard to understand. And I had to pray a lot to not be so judgmental of all the men and leaders of that time. And I'll tell you what I came to the conclusion. Sorry, I'm looking because I don't know if my children are outside. And I came to the conclusion that there are certain things that I don't understand that are part of our religion's history. And there are certain things that I really wish someone could tell me all the answers. Right? Don't I wish? But there are also things in my life that I wish that I could know all the answers to. And just like there's things in my life that I don't control, and things in the religion that have happened in the past that I can't control and that I don't have answers for, that I know that I'm going to get an answer one day, because the Lord, I'm going to personally ask him questions. And I'm going to get those answers for myself then, if I am not able to get them now. And that there are just certain things that, and this might offend people and this might not, and it's fine. You have to come to your own conclusion. But I believe that God communicates in a way that we can understand. However, I believe that our humanness also contributes, and our experiences and all these things contribute to our discerning of those inspirations. And depending on my mood and my personal experience will depend on how I interpret the things that have been revealed to me, and how I will go and act upon those promptings that I get, right? And so I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I don't know how to word it myself, I guess. So when the Lord is commanding people to do certain things and communicate certain things to them, we as humans may not interpret everything in the best way, the way the Lord would have us understand it. And I want you to think about that a little bit longer, okay? The Lord communicates with humans, and then we translate what he says to us in our way. But he's not going to be able to make us do it in the way that he hoped, if that makes sense. And so, because he doesn't make us do things, he only inspires us, commands us, and you know, tells us to do things, but the way that we interpret how to do things is on us. And the way that things happen is still on us, because he's not here making us do it, right? And so that is what I'm going to say about that. And you take it as you wish, right? But all I know is I'm going to stay as close as I can to Jesus Christ. And I know that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the best way for me to stay close to my Savior, because of the authority of the priesthood that we have, that has been restored to the earth. And I know without a doubt that this is the true Church of Jesus Christ, and that it is the only way that I will be able to progress and continue to stay with my family forever, because of those things that have been those covenants and those promises that I can make that bind me to my family and that bind me to the Lord. And there are those few things that I don't understand, but that I know that I will understand them later. And so I put them on the shelf and save that for later, because I don't need to worry about that right now. It is not relevant to my salvation. And so I don't worry about all the little things, because if I allow Satan to trick me into focusing on the wrong things, then I will be tricked and I will be deceived, and I will not be able to receive the progress or achieve the progress and receive the help that I need to accomplish those goals that I have. So anyways, that's how we're going to leave that for you. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more because of the way that Jacob talks. I know that there's some more information in here about his preaching, and it was important to them, and so they put it in here, which I am grateful for. Okay, so says, and we were in verse 17 to 19. Okay, wherefore I, Jacob, gave unto them these words as I taught them in the temple, having first obtained mine errand from the Lord. For I, Jacob, and my brother Joseph had been consecrated priests and teachers of this people by the hand of Nephi. And we did magnify our office unto the Lord, taking upon us the responsibility, answering the sins of the people upon our own heads, if we did not teach them the word of God, which with all diligence. Wherefore, by laboring with our might, their blood might not come upon our garments, otherwise their blood would come upon our garments, and we would not be found spotless at the last day. And so they are trying to magnify their calling. They're trying to make sure that they are able to teach them the things that the Lord wants them to know. Okay, so then it says, Jacob was a priest. So my battery is running out so fast. Jacob was a priest and teacher, and he had been called to minister to the Nephites, and he saw what was happening among the people. Hold on, I'm going to go really light. He saw what was happening among the people. He did not sit back, but instead he taught them. In verse 17, he explained that he taught them in the temple. Great idea. Chapters 2 and 3 are a record of what he taught. And that's why I said that we're going to be touching on that again. And so it might be triggering. Okay. And we will see that he taught without apology and with so much clarity that they could not misunderstand what he was saying. He was also willing to say hard things to them. His concern was their welfare, not his own popularity. In verse 17, Jacob also states that he first obtained his errand from the Lord. He does not see this as an assignment from Nephi, but as an errand from the Lord. It is like saying, the Lord has called me to be a primary teacher rather than the bishop called me. Love that perspective. Jacob states that they did magnify our office, meaning both he and his brother Joseph, who was also called to be a priest and a teacher, they knew that they would be held accountable if they did not fulfill their responsibility. And the word magnify means to make great of greater. Jacob and Joseph accepted the call to be priests and teachers, and then they magnified their office unto the Lord. Notice what Elder Henry B. Eyring taught about this. Okay. Should have brought my glasses. Okay. The Lord will magnify you. Okay. This is what it says. And hopefully I have 2%. Here we go. Just as God called you and will guide you, he will magnify you. You will need that magnification. Your calling will surely bring opposition. You are in the master's service. You are his representative. Eternal lives depend on you. He faced opposition, and he said that facing opposition would be the lot of those he called. The forces arrayed against you will try not only to frustrate your work, but to bring you down. The Apostle Paul described it this way: for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. There will be times when you will feel overwhelmed. One of the ways you will be attacked is with the feeling that you are inadequate. You are inadequate to answer a call to represent God with only your own powers, but you have access to more than your natural capacities, and you do not work alone. End quote. Oof, I love that. And that was actually President Gordon B. Hinckley, 1989 General Conference. Okay, we're gonna have to look that up because I think they just accidentally attributed this quote to different people. So April 1989 General Conference, here we come. We're gonna go look for you. So, but I love that thought, it either way, it was from an apostle of the Lord, that he's reminding us that we are in this fight against the adversary, and that we will be attacked. It's not like a thing that we're not going to be attacked, but that we have God on our side, and that is who's going to help us when we are feeling inadequate to do our calling. And our calling as a mother is so important. And I know that the children that you have are not by accident, because let me tell you, I have prayed so hard to have children, and we got three. We got 3 miracle babies. And with every single one, I knew, and I know that they are sent to me because only I can be their mother in the way that I am and the way that the Lord hopes for me to be. And because if he wanted to send my children to somebody else, he would have, because guess what? We prayed for a long time. And so I know that every child is where they need to be with the mom that the Lord wants them to have. And if that weren't the case, you wouldn't have them. You wouldn't have them. And because the Lord can just send them to other people, because that's what he does. He can do that. And so I know that sometimes our calling as mothers is a hard one. But it is our calling to bear and to have and to magnify and to love. And so I challenge you today to see what you can do to help yourself show up in the best way that you can, so that you can pour from not an empty cup and not an empty well, but that you can give from a full and abundant well. And Jesus Christ, he's our living water. So if he's our living water, where do we think we're going to get that to be able to pour into somebody else? So I challenge you to figure that out, to see what's one thing that you can do to help you to help you show up better in your life for you and for the ones that you love. And until tomorrow, stay strong, warrior. Okay, and today's adventure is the Grand Canyon. Whoop, I'm covering like half of it from the way that I'm looking.
What's the hike down to the bottom? How long would that take?
I think I lost my sunglasses somewhere.
We
Dang
took,
it.
we took about a
Where did I
week.
put those?
And we did pretty long
Oh, wait,
days.
they're on my chest.
Yeah,
We got
it'd probably take,
Say hi,
if we
Fleur.
took you fast, it'd probably take. Eat a rock off the edge.
Okay,
Brad.
so we're here in the Grand Canyon. Check it. We did bike rides, and it's so worth it.
Why can't I eat a rock off the edge?
Because there are trails that go down and you don't know where they are.
It's amazing.
Right? Like we're not that far from the South Kaibab Trail, which actually dips down into the canyon. So you don't ever want to throw rocks off canyons because you never know.
Look at that,
when there
it's
might
just
be people
amazing.
below.
So you're saying I can't throw it off the canyon of Mount South?
Go the other direction. There we go.
So Dad, you're telling me I can't throw a rock off of the canyon Mount Faust?
Well,
That is correct.
Amazing.